Corporal Jace Merrill adjusted his uniform one last time as the transport ship descended toward Thalvera's surface. Through the viewport, the alien world stretched out in brilliant emerald and gold, vast forests punctuated by crystalline cities that caught the light of the planet's twin suns. He'd been told this was a routine supply escort for some diplomatic ceremony, nothing more than showing the flag and demonstrating human Thalvani cooperation. "Beautiful planet," commented Lieutenant Torres, his escort partner, checking her sidearm. "Strange people, though. All that warrior culture mixed with, whatever this ceremony is supposed to be." Jace nodded absently, watching the massive amphitheater complex grow larger as they approached. It was carved from living rock, its spiraling towers adorned with flowing banners in colors that seemed to shift in the alien sunlight. Command briefing was pretty vague. Something about unity and tradition. What he couldn't see from the transport were the thousands of hovering camera drones, or the billions of Thalvani across the planet settling in to watch the most anticipated event in generations. The landing pad bustled with activity. Thalvani officials in elaborate ceremonial armor directed the unloading of supplies, rare earth delicacies and technological gifts. Jace tried not to stare at their distinctive appearance, tall, elegant beings with pale purple skin that seemed to shimmer slightly, dark hair in intricate braids, and eyes that held an almost predatory intelligence. "Humans," called a voice with a melodic accent. A Thalvani official approached, her ceremonial robes trailing behind her. "I am Keeper Velana. You are here for the right of choosing." "The what?" Jace exchanged glances with Torres. "The ceremony," Velana clarified, though her expression suggested this should be obvious. "Come. You are honored guests. The broadcast begins soon." Before either human could ask questions, they were swept into the amphitheater's main level. Jace's jaw dropped. The arena was massive, easily holding 50,000 spectators, all focused on an elaborate stage where dozens of young Thalvani males stood in formation. Each was magnificent, tall, powerfully built, wearing traditional warrior garments that displayed their physiques and achievements. "What exactly is happening here?" Jace whispered to Torres as they were led to what appeared to be VIP seating. "The right of choosing," Velana overheard. "Once each generation, our young elite select their mates. Today, Princess Liratesh makes her choice. She is our youngest breeding candidate in 3 centuries, barely past her maturity at only 200 years. The crowd's roar interrupted any response. Across the arena, a figure emerged onto the stage, and Jace felt his breath catch. She was stunning, not just beautiful, but carrying herself with a fluid grace that spoke of both nobility and danger. Her pale purple skin seemed to glow in the ceremonial lighting, and her dark curly hair moved like liquid shadow around her shoulders. Unlike the elaborate gowns he'd expected, she wore practical but elegant clothing that allowed for movement. Princess Liratesh surveyed the assembled males with calculating eyes. Each suitor stepped forward as she approached, displaying their strengths, their family connections, their breeding potential. The crowd watched in rapt attention as cameras captured every moment for the planetary broadcast. Jace found himself studying her face rather than the spectacle. While others saw a political alliance or genetic opportunity, he saw something else, a young woman trapped in a ceremony that reduced her to a prize to be claimed. There was intelligence in her eyes, and frustration barely concealed beneath royal composure. She moved through the line of suitors with growing disinterest, rejecting each with polite but firm gestures. The crowd grew restless. This wasn't how the rite usually proceeded. Then, impossibly, she stepped off the stage. Princess Liratesh walked directly toward the guest seating, her gaze fixed on something, someone. The amphitheater fell silent except for the hum of camera drones rushing to follow her. She stopped in front of Jace. Up close, she was even more striking. Her eyes held depths he couldn't fathom, and when she smiled, it was with genuine warmth rather than royal obligation. "You," she said simply, reaching into her ceremonial pouch and withdrawing a crystal pendant, the choosing mark. "I choose you." The crystal touched his chest, adhering to his uniform with some alien property. Chaos erupted. The crowd exploded in confused shouts, cameras swarmed closer, and Torres grabbed his arm in shock. Jace stared at the princess, completely bewildered. What? Ma'am, I think there's been a mistake. Liratesha's smile widened, showing sharp canine teeth that somehow made her more beautiful rather than frightening. She leaned closer, her voice carrying clearly over the din for the cameras to catch. No mistake, Jace Merrill. I chose the only one who looked at me like a person, not a prize. The amphitheater erupted again. Political implications crashed over diplomatic channels. And Jace, a simple corporal from Earth, found himself at the center of an interplanetary incident with absolutely no idea what he'd just gotten himself into. Jace's new quarters in the Thalvera palace were larger than his family's entire home back on Earth. Crystalline walls seemed to pulse with their own inner light, and the bed, if it could be called that, was more like a circular platform covered in what felt like liquid silk. He sat on its edge, still wearing his uniform, staring at the ceremonial crystal that had somehow bonded to his chest. This is insane, he muttered, running his hands through his hair. A soft chime announced a visitor. The door dissolved away to reveal Princess Liratesh, now dressed in flowing robes that complemented her pale purple skin. She moved with that same fluid grace, but he could see tension in her shoulders. May I enter? She asked formally. It's your palace, Jace replied, standing awkwardly. Your Highness. Liratesh. Or simply Lyra. She stepped inside, and the door reformed behind her. We need to talk. About how to undo this? Jace gestured at the crystal. Because I'm pretty sure your people aren't thrilled about your choice. Her laugh was musical but sharp. Undo. Jace Merrill, do you understand what you've become? Honestly? No. I thought I was delivering supplies to a diplomatic function. Lyra moved closer, her exotic scent, something like night-blooming flowers mixed with ozone, filling his senses. The right of choosing is sacred. My mark upon you means we are bonded for life. There is no undoing. The weight of her words hit him. Life? But we barely know each other. Yet you're the first person in 2 centuries to look at me and see Liratesh the individual, not Liratesh the breeding candidate. Her eyes searched his face. Why? Jace considered the question seriously. Because that's what you are. A person. I could see it in your eyes during the ceremony, you were frustrated, maybe even angry. You didn't want to be there. I've been promised to warriors since I was 50 years old. Evaluated for my genetics, my fertility, my ability to produce strong offspring. She touched his face gently, her skin warm despite its alien appearance. But you saw me as, me. The intimacy of the gesture sent electricity through him. Lyra, The council is meeting tonight, she interrupted, though her hand remained on his cheek. They want to declare the choice invalid. Claim I was influenced by human pheromones or some nonsense. Maybe that would be better, Jace said reluctantly. I don't want to cause problems for you. Her eyes flashed dangerously. Better? You think it would be better for me to be handed over to some arrogant warrior who sees me as a prize to be won? I don't know your customs, your world. Then learn them. She stepped closer, her body almost touching his. We have time. The bonding ceremony can't be performed for 30 days. Traditional courtship period. Courtship. His voice came out rougher than intended. Among my people, it involves getting to know each other. Intimately. The way she said intimately made his pulse race. Sharing thoughts, desires, bodies. Before he could respond, she leaned in and pressed her lips to his. The kiss was electric, literally. A warm, tingling sensation spread from where their mouths met, and Jace realized this was some aspect of Thalvera physiology. Her lips were soft but firm, and when she traced his lower lip with her tongue, he tasted something sweet and intoxicating. He pulled back, breathing hard. Lyra. Is this unpleasant for you? She asked, though her eyes showed she knew the answer. No. God, no. But this is all happening so fast. Another chime interrupted them. This time, the door admitted Keeper Velana, who looked deeply disapproving. Princess, the council requests your immediate presence. There are complications from your choice. Lyra Tesh straightened, her royal composure sliding back into place like armor. What complications? The human diplomatic corps is demanding Corporal Merrill's release. They claim he was coerced into an unwilling alliance. Jace felt his stomach drop. They're trying to extract me. It seems both our peoples are struggling with your union, Velana said carefully. Perhaps it would be wise to consider. No. Lyra's voice carried absolute authority. My choice is made. If the council wishes to discuss it, they can speak with both of us. She turned to Jace, her expression softening. Unless you wish to leave. Standing there, looking at this incredible woman who had turned her world upside down for him, Jace realized something that surprised him. He didn't want to leave. Despite the insanity of the situation, despite the political complications, he wanted to know more about Lyra Tesh. Wanted to understand the spark he'd felt when she kissed him. I'm not going anywhere, he said firmly. Her smile was radiant. Then we face this together. As they walked toward the council chambers, Lyra slipped her hand into his. Her skin was warm and soft, and Jace found himself thinking that maybe, just maybe, accidental bonds could lead to something real. The corridors ahead buzzed with activity, advisors, diplomats, and reporters all scrambling to understand what Princess Lyra Tesh's unprecedented choice would mean for both their worlds. But in that moment, all Jace cared about was the woman walking beside him, and the growing certainty that he was exactly where he belonged. 3 days after the council meeting, which had ended in heated arguments and no resolutions, Jace found himself in Lyra's private garden. The space was a marvel of alien horticulture, luminescent flowers that chimed softly in the breeze, trees with silver bark that seemed to pulse with life, and a small waterfall that somehow flowed upward in spiraling loops. Lyra sat beside him on a bench carved from living crystal, her legs tucked under her in a way that should have looked uncomfortable but somehow appeared elegant. She'd been telling him about Thalvani history, but he found himself more fascinated by the way her eyes lit up when she spoke passionately about something. You're not listening, she accused, though she was smiling. I am. You were talking about the Great Convergence, when your people first discovered faster-than-light travel. He shifted to face her more fully. But I was also thinking about how beautiful you are when you're excited about something. Her pale purple skin darkened slightly, a blush, he realized. Human directness is refreshing. Is that why you chose me? Because I'm different? Lyra was quiet for a moment, considering. Partly. But also because of who you are. Do you know what happened when I was presented to the Council of Potential Mates last year? Jace shook his head. Each warrior spoke at length about my breeding potential, my genetic advantages, how our offspring would strengthen their houses. Not one asked about my interests, my thoughts, or my desires. Her voice grew quieter. I felt like a prize animal being evaluated for stud. That's horrible. It's tradition. Thalvani partnerships are typically political or genetic alliances. Love, as humans understand it, is considered a pleasant bonus, not a requirement. What do you understand about love? The question came out more seriously than he'd intended. She looked at him with those deep, intelligent eyes. I'm learning. From you. The space between them seemed to crackle with tension. They'd been dancing around their attraction for days, sharing meals and conversations, but always with the awareness of their unusual circumstances. Now, in the privacy of her garden, that careful distance felt impossible to maintain. Lyra, he said softly, reaching out to touch her face. She leaned into his touch, her eyes falling closed. Among my people, physical intimacy is different than with humans. More intense. There are biological factors that enhance the experience. Like what happened when we kissed. That was just the beginning. She opened her eyes, and he saw desire there mixed with something that might have been nervousness. Jace, I need you to understand, if we become physically intimate, it will strengthen our bond. Make it deeper. More permanent. More permanent than bonded for life, he asked with a slight smile. The initial bonding was ceremonial. What I'm talking about is biochemical. Thalvani physiology creates connections during intimate contact. It's part of how we ensure lasting partnerships. Jace studied her face, seeing the vulnerability beneath her royal composure. Are you asking if I'm sure about this? Yes. Instead of answering with words, he leaned in and kissed her. This time, when that electric sensation spread through him, he didn't pull away. Her response was immediate and passionate, her arms winding around his neck as she kissed him back with surprising hunger. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. My chambers, she whispered against his lips. More privacy. Her rooms were even more luxurious than his, dominated by that circular bed platform covered in silk-like materials in shades of deep purple and silver. Crystalline panels in the walls could be adjusted for lighting and privacy, and she dimmed them to a soft, intimate glow. Jace felt suddenly nervous. I don't want to hurt you. I don't know enough about your anatomy. We're more similar than you think, she assured him, moving closer. And I'll guide you. She began undressing him with careful fingers, and he marveled at her touch. Her skin seemed to generate its own warmth, and everywhere she touched, that pleasant electrical sensation followed. When she removed his shirt, she paused to trace the muscles of his chest with obvious appreciation. Humans are aesthetically pleasing, she murmured. So are Thalvani, he replied, helping her with the complex fastenings of her robes. When the fabric fell away, Jace's breath caught. Her skin was perfect, pale purple and luminous, her body both alien and undeniably feminine. She was beautiful in a way that transcended species. Their lovemaking was tender and exploratory, both of them learning the other's responses. Lyra had been right about Thalvani physiology. During their intimate contact, he could actually feel echoes of her emotions, her pleasure becoming his own in a feedback loop that intensified everything. Afterward, they lay entwined on the silk-soft bed, Jace marveling at how perfectly she fit against him despite their physiological differences. The bond is stronger now, Lyra said softly, tracing patterns on his chest. I can feel your emotions. What am I feeling right now? He asked. She smiled. Wonder. Contentment. And beneath that, worry about what comes next. She was right. The council isn't going to give up. And apparently my own people want me extracted. Do you want to leave? Jace considered the question seriously. A week ago, his biggest concern had been whether he'd get leave time to visit his sister. Now he was emotionally and biochemically bonded to an alien princess, embroiled in interplanetary politics, and somehow, impossibly, falling in love. No, he said firmly. I want to stay. With you. Above them, Thalvera's twin moons rose through the crystal ceiling, casting ethereal light across their joined forms. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new political pressures, and more attempts to separate them. But tonight, they had each other, and the growing certainty that what had started as an accidental bond was becoming something real and precious. I love you, Lyra whispered against his skin. I love you too, he replied, meaning it completely. Outside, the planet continued its debates about their union. Inside, two hearts from different worlds beat in perfect synchronization. The crisis came 2 weeks into their courtship period. Jace woke to the sound of raised voices echoing through the palace corridors. Beside him, Lyra stirred, her purple skin pale with worry as she listened to the commotion outside their chambers. What's happening? He asked, pulling on his clothes. Emergency council session, she said grimly, wrapping herself in a silk robe. And it sounds like they're not happy. The throne room was in chaos when they arrived. High Chancellor Kethvar, an imposing male with ceremonial scars covering his arms, stood at the center of a group of agitated nobles. When he saw Lyra and Jace enter, his expression grew thunderous. "Princess," he said formally, though his tone was anything but respectful. "We have a problem." "Speak." "The northern houses have issued a formal challenge to your choice. They claim the human has bewitched you with alien influence and demand the right of combat to claim you properly." Jace felt his blood run cold. "Combat? Trial by combat is an ancient rite," another noble explained. "If the princess chosen is deemed unworthy, a challenger may fight for the right to claim her instead." "And who issued this challenge?" Lyra's voice was dangerously quiet. "Prince Vectar of House Ironspear," Kethvar replied. "He was among your suitors at the right. He claims the human cannot possibly defend you as a proper mate should." Jace looked around the room, seeing faces that ranged from sympathetic to hostile. "What does this combat involve?" "Single combat. To the death," Kethvar said bluntly. "Prince Vectar is a champion warrior. He has killed 17 opponents in formal duels." "This is barbaric," Jace said. "This is tradition," the Chancellor snapped. "If you cannot defend your claim to the princess, you are unworthy of her." "Enough," Lyra commanded, her royal authority filling the room. "I will not be claimed like property by whoever can best fight for me. Princess, you know the law." "I know the law better than you think." She stepped forward, her posture regal and threatening. "The challenged party may name a champion to fight in their place. Or—" She paused dramatically, "the bonded pair may choose exile over combat." "Exile?" Jace understood immediately. They could leave Thalvera together, abandoning her crown and her people to preserve their bond. "You would give up everything for him?" Kethvar asked, clearly shocked. "Yes," Lyra said without hesitation. "If that's what it takes." The room erupted in arguments. Some nobles called her decision treasonous, others spoke of duty and bloodline. But Jace barely heard them. He was staring at this incredible woman who was willing to sacrifice her birthright for him. "No," he said quietly, but his voice carried in the sudden silence. "No, Lyra. You're not giving up your crown. Your people need you." "Jace. I'll fight." He looked directly at Kethvar. "When?" "Tomorrow at dawn. In the Circle of Honor, before the assembled houses." The Chancellor's expression was almost pitying. "Human, you cannot hope to defeat Prince Vectar. He's twice your size and trained from birth to kill." "Maybe. But I won't let Lyra sacrifice everything because of me." That evening, they held each other in the garden where they'd first made love. Lyra was fighting back tears, and Jace could feel her anguish through their bond. "I can't lose you," she whispered. "Not when I've just found you." "You won't," he said with more confidence than he felt. "I'm not planning to die tomorrow. Vectar is a monster. He enjoys killing. I've seen him fight before." Jace silenced her with a kiss, pouring all his love and determination into the contact. When they separated, he rested his forehead against hers. "Whatever happens tomorrow, I need you to know something. These past 2 weeks have been the best of my life. I wouldn't change any of it, even knowing where it leads." "Don't talk like you're already dead," she said fiercely. "I'm not. I'm talking like a man who's found something worth fighting for." They made love that night with desperate passion, as if they could forge an unbreakable connection through the intensity of their joining. Lyra's alien physiology responded to his emotions, amplifying his determination and love until it felt like fire in his veins. "I can feel your strength," she murmured afterward, her body still pressed against his. "You're not afraid." "I'm terrified," he admitted. "But not of dying. I'm afraid of leaving you alone." "Then don't." The next morning dawned clear and bright, both of Thalvera's sons casting the circle of honor in brilliant light. Thousands had gathered to witness the combat, and Jace could see hover cameras broadcasting the event across the planet. Prince Vectar stood in the center of the circle, and Jace had to suppress a gulp. The Thalvani warrior was enormous, nearly 8 feet tall, covered in muscle and ritual scars. His weapons were traditional, a curved blade in each hand designed for maximum lethality. Jace had been given similar weapons, though they felt foreign in his hands. Human military training had covered hand-to-hand combat, but nothing like this. "Any last words, human?" Vectar called as they faced each other. Jace looked up at the royal box where Lyra sat, her face a mask of barely controlled terror. Their eyes met across the distance, and he smiled. "Yeah," he called back, loud enough for the cameras to catch. "I love her. And that's something you'll never understand." Vectar roared and charged, his blades flashing in the alien sunlight. Jace dodged the first strike, using his smaller size and military training to stay mobile. He couldn't match the alien's strength, but he could be faster, smarter. The fight was brutal and desperate. Vectar was everything the Chancellor had promised, skilled, vicious, and completely without mercy. But as the battle wore on, Jace began to notice something. The alien was fighting like he expected easy victory, becoming frustrated when his human opponent refused to die quickly. 20 minutes into the combat, both were bloodied and exhausted. Jace had several wounds, but Vectar was breathing hard, his earlier confidence replaced by grim determination. That's when Jace made his move. Instead of dodging the next attack, he stepped inside Vectar's guard, accepting a cut to his ribs in exchange for a clean strike to the alien's throat. Vectar dropped, his massive form crashing to the ground. The circle of honor fell silent except for Jace's ragged breathing. Then Lyra's voice rang out across the arena. "The challenge is answered. The bond stands." The crowd erupted in cheers and shouts, but Jace only had eyes for the purple-skinned woman racing down from the royal box to throw herself into his arms. "I told you," he gasped against her hair. "Not planning to die." "Never again," she said fiercely. "Never put me through that again." "Deal," he agreed, kissing her despite their very public audience. Around them, the political landscape of Thalvera shifted permanently. The human who had won a princess's heart had just proven he could defend it as well. 1 month after the trial by combat, the grand amphitheater had been transformed. Where once dozens of rejected suitors had stood, now flowers from both Earth and Thalvera created a stunning display of interspecies cooperation. Representatives from both worlds filled the seats, and the atmosphere was celebratory rather than tense. Jace stood at the altar, wearing a uniform that blended human military dress with Thalvana's ceremonial elements. The crystal that had started it all still adorned his chest, but now it pulsed with warm light, a sign, Lyra had told him, that their bond had grown beyond mere ceremony into something deeper. When the music began, a haunting melody that combined human orchestral elements with Thalvani harmonic crystals, he felt his breath catch. Lyra appeared at the amphitheater's entrance, and she was radiant. Her gown was a masterpiece that honored both cultures, flowing silk that shifted from deep purple to silver as she moved, with crystalline elements that caught the light of both Thalvera's twin suns. Her dark curly hair was adorned with flowers from her garden, and she carried herself with the confidence of a woman who had chosen her own destiny. But it was her smile that made Jace's heart race. It was pure joy, directed entirely at him. As she approached, the assembled crowd rose in respect. Human diplomats sat beside Thalvani nobles, former opponents now united in witnessing this unprecedented union. Even High Chancellor Kethvar, who had initially opposed their bond, wore an expression of grudging respect. "You look beautiful," Jace whispered as Lyra took her place beside him. "You look like a man about to become a prince," she replied with a soft laugh. The ceremony itself was a carefully negotiated blend of traditions. They exchanged vows in both languages, promised to honor both their peoples, and participated in rituals that symbolized the joining of their very different worlds. When the officiant asked if they would accept the permanent bond, the biochemical connection that would link them for life, both answered without hesitation. I will, Jace said, meaning it with every fiber of his being. I will, Lyra echoed, her eyes bright with unshed tears. The kiss that sealed their union was electric in the literal sense, the same tingling sensation that had marked their first intimate contact now witnessed by billions across two worlds. When they separated, the crystal on Jace's chest flared with brilliant light, and an answering glow appeared on Lyra's forehead, the permanent mark of a bonded pair. The crowd erupted in celebration that seemed to go on forever. But eventually, tradition demanded they withdraw to their private chambers for the wedding night. Their new quarters were a marvel of combined architecture, human comfort blended with Thalvani elegance. The bed was larger than before, surrounded by crystal formations that provided soft, romantic lighting. Earth roses mingled with luminescent alien flowers, filling the air with exotic perfume. So, Lyra said, suddenly seeming almost shy despite everything they'd shared. We're married. Bonded for life, Jace corrected, moving closer to her. How do you feel? Complete, she said without hesitation. For the first time in my life, I feel like I'm exactly where I belong. He reached up to touch the glowing mark on her forehead, marveling at the warmth it generated. What does this mean? The permanent bond? It means we're connected in ways that go beyond the physical or emotional. We'll be able to sense each other's well-being across vast distances. We'll live longer together than we would apart. And... She paused, a blush darkening her skin. Our children will be something entirely new. The first true human Thalvani hybrids. Children? Jace raised an eyebrow. Eventually. If you want them. With you? I want everything. Their wedding night was passionate and tender, a celebration of not just their physical union but the joining of their souls. The bond between them had grown so strong that their pleasure seemed to echo and amplify, creating sensations neither had experienced before. Afterward, as they lay entwined in the soft light of the crystal formations, Lyra traced patterns on his chest. I have something to tell you, she said. What? The council has approved your appointment as cultural ambassador. You'll be helping to establish exchange programs between our worlds. Jace blinked in surprise. They're giving me a job. They're recognizing that our bond represents something important. A bridge between species. She smiled. Also, you'll need something to do while I'm busy running the planet. Running the... Did I forget to mention? Father is abdicating next year. Apparently, my choice of mate convinced him that I have the strength to rule in my own right. Jace stared at her. I'm going to be married to a queen. You're going to be a king consort, she corrected. Think you can handle it? He pulled her closer, marveling again at how perfectly she fit against him. A month ago, I was a corporal delivering supplies. Now I'm bonded to an alien princess who's about to become queen, and I'm going to be some kind of interstellar diplomat. Having second thoughts? Not a single one, he said firmly. Though I should probably warn you, I have no idea how to be royalty. You'll learn. We'll learn together. She kissed his neck, sending shivers through him. Besides, you've already proven you can handle the most important part. Which is? Loving me for who I am, not what I represent. Outside their chambers, two worlds continued to celebrate the union that had seemed impossible just weeks ago. Inside, Jace and Lyra held each other close, sharing dreams of the future they would build together. The accidental bond had become something precious and permanent. And as Thalvera's twin moons reached their zenith, casting ethereal light through the crystal walls, both knew that they had found something rare and wonderful, true love that transcended species, politics, and the vast emptiness of space. Their story was just beginning, but it was already one for the ages, the human corporal and the alien princess who had chosen each other against all odds, and in doing so, had changed the fate of two worlds. In the morning, they would begin their new lives as partners in every sense of the word. Tonight, they simply held each other and marveled at the journey that had brought them together. Love, it seemed, truly was universal.